What just happened? Down 8 with 2 minutes to go. Missing the 2-point conversion, down 2 with just over 30 seconds to go. An onside kick recovery after being iced on the first try. The offense only getting 2 yards and 3 plays to lead to a career-long 51-yard look. Did you have any doubts? Nope, the Nate Reed legacy game. Middle name Wendy because he went 4 for 4, including the career-high kick for the win. Skips onside kicks like the rocks on a lake. The Delaware Blue Hens back in the win column after all odds were against them on homecoming night. So with that, welcome back to another episode of Feathers and Field Goals. My co-host Dan Steenkammer here with me after I brought all my college crew over in Section J. Dan, I moved down to the bottom of the bleachers for the ending. How are the vibes at the top during this ending?
Yeah, the vibes were high. The vibes were high, just like watching the kick through the sky late in the game, late night. It was getting dire, but the momentum, Uncle Mo had swung all the way in the direction of Delaware, in the direction of Nate Reed. He earned it. He earned that opportunity. He earned that trust from the staff and the team at large. The whole operation, credit the protection, the snap in terms of place kicking, Maddox Sills getting it away, Brendan Locke on the hold. And yeah, Nate Reed, who I know, Bryce, we get to hear from later in the episode, is very, very much thrilled for him and his family to have that moment be one that so many alums who make it back for the one homecoming game that year, those memories made, give Nate a lot of credit for it.
Producer Brody Hamilton pulling you in. As a Falcons fan, I've experienced the wrong side of the worst comeback in Super Bowl history. Your Ravens, while on a roll, I know you experienced a heartbreak the first week of the season in a similar fashion of being up big like that and just seeing it slowly fall apart. Does Saturday's win make up for it from your perspective on the 2025 football season?
Absolutely. I've already written off the Ravens this year. I think they can definitely come back. I think they're on track to earn a winning record and maybe even win the AFC North and get that playoff bid. But we're here to talk about the Hens, and let's talk about it. I almost passed out in the stadium. I held to my knees after the onside kick. I felt like the emptiness in your chest start to open up, and then the pit start to hit you, and the stomach, my body was flipping inside out basically during that kick. I can't believe that it went in. But also, I mean, if you've been to like a night game or like an evening kind of into night game in the cold in Delaware Stadium, it wasn't that cold actually. It's cold today. Then the game's not over until triple zeros are on the clock. We saw that against Western Kentucky. The game wasn't over until triple zeros were on the clock, and then we saw the flip side of it this week against Louisiana Tech, a game that I thought that we were going to lose. I completely written off. I told my girlfriend going into the stadium, listen, whatever happens, I'm going to try to keep a good mood about things because I'm going in, I said, knowing that we're going to lose. I've never been so happy to be wrong because this was just unreal. And I just can't believe that they did it in the way that they did it with all the dramatics of the pick six into the last drive, into the onside kick. Carty going deep on that last play for whatever reason. And then the whatchamacallit, miracle in whatever attempt at the end when they started throwing the ball around the yard, trying to get that touchdown with seconds remaining. And then I'm finally tackling them, and the whole stadium erupted. Those of us who were left in the stadium, I'll add. After that pick six, we had a lot of people lose hope and leave, but they missed a great ending to the game. I can't blame them for leaving necessarily, because at that point the momentum it felt like it had completely swung. You had a rushing touchdown where their running back rings the victory bell, and then on the next drive, I believe it was the next drive, there was that pick six from Nick Minacucci. But Minacucci's smart, man. If he's going to throw a pick, he's going to give the other team points with us getting the ball back. He's like Josh Allen throwing arm punts. It's all strategic for Nick. Of course, I'm joking, but if that DB, if he takes a knee, if he slides down at like the 3 or 4 yard line, I think Louisiana Tech wins the game. It was a huge mistake to let the Hens get the ball back in their home turf. The defense was great all game, but they couldn't overcome that onside kick to put us basically in Nate Reed's range. And I just don't know what else to say. Watch it back on ESPN replay.
Yeah. Well, I'll take it from you here just to summarize, as you talked about, summarize the moments here for maybe someone listening to this episode that left on that play, that pick six that led it to 24-16. Delaware was down 17-16 late in the fourth quarter on 4th and 10. Louisiana Tech had a 38-yard pick six to lead to it to be in 8 scores, 24-16. But side note on the actual summary, I don't hate it because we think back to the UConn game on 4th down where we had a sideline throw that drew a pass interference, and later in this drive, a 4th down throw that was a 50-50 ball. So you think in that moment, a lot of things can happen. Your receiver can get up and get it. Maybe it draws a flag. It ended up being maybe the next best scenario after not moving the chains in Louisiana Tech scoring. Delaware responded with an 8-play scoring drive. Happened in 1 minute and 49 seconds, cut lead within 2, helped by that Louisiana Tech pass interference on a 4th and 10 downfield. In the middle of it, Delaware attempts the 2-2 tie, but fails on a jump ball to Duplessis in the back corner of the end zone. The clock stood at just 34 seconds, and Delaware only had 2 timeouts left. So if La Tech got the ball, the game was over. Nate Reed attempted an onside kick. He faked left. He went right, and it didn't have a promising look to a bounce, but La Tech called a timeout right before the ball was kicked. Delaware gave the same look, fake left, go right. The first bounce got through the first line of Bulldogs. The first line, looking back at it, looked like they were just ready to block Delaware to get through. The second bounce hopped over the attempted receiver, just like it did against Jack State. We'll get into that with Nate in our conversation, but it bounced over the receiver, gets a hand on it, but got too high, and Jakari Kelly, who was in motion, like he was running around on offense, got to it before it had any chance of going out of bounds on the Louisiana Tech 36-yard line. In 3 attempts, Delaware only got 2 yards. On 3rd and 8, Louisiana Tech sent the house. So, basically, it was like a zero, it was a zero blitz. So, I think Delaware, same thing, just threw it up, I believe, to Wilson, the receiver, and unfortunately was not an area to make a strong attempt on it. So then the best shot to win it was a 51-yard field goal attempt. Nate Reed, who was 3 for 3 on the day at the time, currently extended his streak to 7 straight made attempts and was the one who got you in any position to win that game. There was no decision to go for it on 4th, even if Link was comfortably above his current career long. Like the kick on the right hash, on the UConn game and on other moments, they've always got it on the left hash. So I was always thinking about where the spot is for the ball on the right hash, peaked left of the right field goal post, and it looked like it would have been good for 60 yards. Like it wasn't one of those where I feel like you had to clinch the body a little bit when it first left the foot, but it looked pretty comfortably in, especially when you get the broadcast view afterwards when you're not sitting on the bleacher side or on the chairback side. Hit the line drive perfectly. And then Delaware, after the kick, received an unsportsmanlike penalty as the full bench practically cleared to celebrate their kicker as 12 seconds remained on the clock, forcing the kickoff to go to the 20-yard line. So then that, in my head, was, this gives like a good return here, gives Louisiana Tech a chance at either a Hail Mary pass or a Hail Mary field goal attempt. Nate, who we talk about the onside kick, we talk about the field goals, but in this scenario he can't put it through the back of the end zone being that far back, but he hit a line drive perfectly, like a squib action, gave his coverage enough time to get downfield and make a play on it, even forcing a holding penalty to back up the Bulldogs to their own 25-yard line and making it almost impossible at that spot with only 6 seconds remaining and 0 timeouts. Delaware wins it 25-24. Dan, the last 2 minutes were so great that the first 58 can easily be forgotten. The defense responded with defensive coordinator Manny Rojas back on the sideline. Only 17 defensive points against the Louisiana Tech side that scored 49 plus twice in conference play this season. Blue Hens struggled to stop the run against Liberty, and the Bulldogs ran well for over 400 yards the week prior to us. I want to give you the chance to speak on any positives from Delaware as a whole before the unforgettable ending.
Delaware coming out, Bryce, in this ball game, in those first 3 quarters that, yes, they do kind of fade into the memory when everything's obscured by the theatrics of the fourth quarter and the end of the game. But the first 3 quarters had a lot to do with this. I mean, you look at Louisiana Tech being held scoreless in the second and third quarters before the fourth quarter eruption that the Bulldogs did have. You had the second and third quarters that included Delaware coming up with an interception. At one point, you had the interception by Nate Evans on the QB hurry and QB hit by Jack Hall. That was major, even though Delaware did punt following that INT. Just having a drive stopped and having possession swung in your favor, to state the obvious. That was still big, just in bridging the middle part of the game. I thought, and that interception thrown by Louisiana Tech was sandwiched by, in the big picture, there was one missed field goal by Tech in the first quarter and another missed field goal as well in the second. And just all those points were very useful later on, needless to say, in the 1 point margin in the final. For Delaware to be setting up Louisiana Tech in not necessarily gimme moments, not necessarily gimme ranges in terms of field goal tries. You look at what preceded each missed field goal by Louisiana Tech. There had been just a 1 yard run on the play before the first field goal missed. And then you also look at a Delaware sack that came by Brandon Gorham. And I know you'll get to the freshman who got involved in this one, Bryce. But for Brandon Gorham to come up with a sack on Cucuck that led to another missed field goal by Louisiana Tech, just all those points come back in a huge way later on. And then one note about the third quarter. The third quarter saw a bunch of punting going on, but Delaware came up with a 96-yard touchdown drive in the third quarter, where, of course, by virtue of it being 96 yards of a drive, Delaware had been backed up to start on that possession. And you look at being backed up in your own territory, in the shadow of your own end zone, and if Delaware doesn't at least move it a little bit on that drive, you're begging for Louisiana Tech to strike and take the lead in a situation where Delaware only led 9-7. So Delaware had been stringing together the Nate Reed field goals from earlier in the ball game, but really felt good about Delaware springing a drive once Sean Wilson had the 51-yard gain on a reception there late in that third quarter, or later in the third quarter. So all told, yeah, I just feel that Delaware did enough to be within reach, stay in the game. And that's why, Brody, I actually was really frustrated from a Delaware point of view, seeing people hitting the exits that promptly after Delaware fell behind by 8 late in the game. I mean, you're looking at a one-score game. Delaware in home games this year has already shown the ability to rally and put together kind of a drill and an offensive surge, or at least get in range offensively, surge into some kind of range to make it interesting in the opponent's territory. So I was pretty frustrated, to be quite honest, with a good turnout for homecoming. I mean, I get that, different people are coming in from away for homecoming. They might not, be the diehards that we are, or that people listening and watching are, but so I'm not trying to treat every Delaware follower the same way. But situationally, you're looking at a game the team really needs. We've been calling it a playoff type of game for the trajectory of the season, and for folks to be jumping the wagon when it's not as if you're necessarily beating any foot traffic. I mean, the aisles are getting all backed up because everybody's thinking the same thing. I guess I'll try to beat everybody else. I'll try to beat the crowd. And then everybody's queued up in the aisle for at least like 3 or 4 minutes at a time. So, yeah, not that we need to spend too much time on that, but I honestly was pretty worked up about that, to see people jumping ship, because Delaware went out and Nate Reed's heroics and overall the team's belief and execution make us look smart for sticking with it. And not that it's ever a decision for us. We're always going to be there to the end. I mean, that goes without saying. But yeah, I'm glad that Delaware delivered to teach a lesson. I'm not trying to be holier than now. It's just a reality. I mean, we were backing it up. Bryce, I was right there behind you, however many rows behind you at the end. But it was those moments that folks did see. Everybody who stayed for the first 3 quarters, they did see those moments bridging the game where Delaware put together, scored some points here and there by forcing opponent field goal misses, and also getting a long drive in the third quarter that helped create the insurance going into the fourth.
Yeah, and I'm sure that those that did leave, honestly, are not Feathers and Field Goals listeners. So we're probably not even getting to them in this podcast. Maybe they are. Maybe they look back and said, I need to get into it. But before I give a shout out to a few people I wanted to, Brody, I wanted to give you a chance to highlight any moments from your memory before all of the fun at the end.
Yeah, I have to give credit to the La Tech defense. They took our pass game kind of out of sync all day. They really hurried the quarterback, Nick Minicucci, made him make a lot of bad decisions, or maybe just times where he threw the ball away. I had someone behind me who maybe didn't understand the concept of why you would throw the ball away, or like the that the vision that a quarterback has in the pocket is different than the vision that we have in the stands, et cetera, et cetera. Looking back on the broadcast, we watch after get home from the game. A lot of those were probably the right decision based on what the defense was giving him. But there just wasn't the time in the pocket, and if there was a time in the pocket, that's because there was plaster coverage in the secondary. So I want to give at least a little nod to the La Tech defense. Also played very gap sound in the run game. I'm surprised that the game went the way it did. If you told me some of our offensive stats, maybe passing stats, rushing stats, I'd be like, okay, well, they had to dominate our defense, or they had to dominate our offense, and they really shut us down. And in a way they did, but in a way, kind of, as you mentioned, Dan, the offense did just enough to come out with the win. Situationally strong, never really giving up. We saw at the Liberty game, sometimes the complimentary football wasn't there. Times that you could have kind of brought the score closer. You score on offense, and then you give one up, kind of an easy one up on defense, or vice versa. But the complimentary ball was there against Louisiana Tech, and that comes down to a coaching improvement, which you love to see. And it's just situational. You can play bad most of the game, or at least get shut down a lot of the game if you're the offense. As long as you come back situationally, hit those kicks. We had a lot of kind of opportunities inside of the 35-yard line. That typically is where Louisiana Tech's defense plays their best, in the high red zone. They shut us down, but you just got to make those kicks, and those kicks were the difference in the game. Obviously, the long one at the end, but as well as the less long ones in the middle that we made and Louisiana Tech couldn't. The defense played great compared to last week. You kind of mentioned it, Bryce, kind of rallying to the ball, holding Louisiana Tech's offense. It's only 17 points. You can't be upset with that if you're Delaware, who's used to scoring much more than 17 points in a game. And that's a recipe to win. And so altogether, I think they played together. I think the defense got stops when it needed to. The offense put it together when they needed to. But Louisiana Tech is a good team with a really good defense. Of course, scoring points on defense will always do that for a team. But they did just enough. The first 58 minutes are kind of hard to watch. I was going back and I was like, oh, we really could have kind of put something together here. We could have taken advantage of this or that. But it ended up the way that you want a game to end up, so I'm not going to complain as much as I would maybe if we lost.
Yeah, and you both said a lot, listed a lot. Before I get into mine, we're getting close to time, so I just want to quick quickly cover maybe a couple things didn't so great. Penalties for Delaware was definitely higher than we usually see, 12 for 114 yards on the day. So definitely want to mechanically clean that up heading on the road to Texas this next week. Third down conversion rate on the lower side against a really tough defense at 4 for 15. I think Brody covered it really well. That the Louisiana Tech defense covered a lot downfield, and they have a really good front. So definitely life was not easy. Think about how the defense did recover themselves. The defense has only given up 30 or more points for Louisiana Tech once this season, and it was a game that was on the road against Kennesaw State. Your starting quarterback falls out; it kind of gets away from you in the sense. So I mean, it's a defense that has held 20 or less 4 times this season. Delaware scored more points against Louisiana Tech than LSU did this season, 25-23. But the shout out I wanted to give before I ask a fun closing one here is we talked about the Brandon Gorham sack, but there's 3 true freshmen on the day that made a lot of plays. Well, I guess I want to say 4 if we include Maddox Sills on the snaps on the play as well. So I want to include Maddox on that because it's not just Nate Reed, it's not just Brendan Locke, it's a full special teams operation. Brandon Gorham, we talked about the sack that led to a missed field goal, but only had 5 snaps on the day, and another sack that Delaware had in the fourth quarter that it was the 3rd and 9 on Delaware's 13 inside the red zone. Gavin Mole and Trey Scott got home on the sack, but Gorham won in his gap on the right side to help collapse the pocket to allow that sack to happen. Because at the time, like the quarterback for Louisiana Tech is very shifty when they had the injury. So not easy to take him down, but Gorham helped win his man to allow the rest of the front to get home. Jamarian Culligbody, I want to give him a shout out. The second straight game starting. I think maybe Louisiana Tech watched a Liberty game and wanted to attack his side. If Kayshawn Cox Jr. was out, questionable at the time, didn't make it out there. Did have 1 flag on the day, pass interference, but PFF stats on the day. Was targeted against 6 times in man coverage, only gave 2 receptions for 33 yards. So he won his matchup for a lot of the game. Had a pass breakup, had a tackle for a loss on a run. He looked great outside. And also just on offense, tight end Scott Moore called the first 2 passes on the last offensive drive, including a 20-yard completion in the middle of the field when Nick had to step out right a little bit. The offensive line gave enough time for Moore to see out his route through the middle towards the right side of the field. That led, I think it was a second down play because he had a 5-yard catch before that. So an ability to not set yourself up for a 3rd and medium or 3rd and long, keep the chains moving. I heard a lot of great things about Moore in fall camp, and I love seeing him get an opportunity in crunch moments when maybe a Whittoff or a Sessons can't be out on the field for that moment. I have a fun question to finish here, guys, with you. Which of these was more fun, the 44-41 overtime UConn win, or kind of like the saving grace 25-24 win on homecoming Saturday?
I can go first. This was not fun for me. I almost had a heart attack. My face was completely pale. I felt like an emptiness in my chest and like stomach that you only heal before you black out. I mean, it was nice after. It was really nice after. I think the UConn game was probably more on, and I think this one gave me more gray hairs. Because early in the year, you're kind of like, well, we have no idea what kind of team we are and who we can beat. So going in against UConn, like, you take that game seriously. Maybe UConn's not taking it very seriously, and you can escape with the win, which is also very exciting. But it's also like, this is UConn. This is a team that we've had like had a dormant like rivalry with for 20 years. Ever since they escaped the Yankee or the A-10, as it were. But this this game is kind of different. You're like, I have no idea like what we're gonna do here. I think we're probably going to lose. And then throughout the course of the game, you're like, well, we have a chance at winning this game if we keep playing the way that we're playing. Kind of low-scoring rock fight. Then it just completely blows up at the end. a head is in my hand. I'm surrender cobraing rather, um, and it's not fun. It's not. It just wasn't. No, it's not fun. That's not the word that I would use to describe it, at least.
All right. Well, I gotta be honest. I disagree. I think, and it might be, or I don't think it is recency bias. I'll tell you why. I think this win over Louisiana Tech was even more fun than the win over UConn because this is a conference game we're talking about. It's a November game. I talk a lot about November. I bring it up probably too much, but maybe just the right amount because this time for Delaware to get a big breakthrough in a league game against a quality foe, Louisiana Tech still has I mean, Delaware just put a big dent in La Tech having those Conference USA title game type paths, but Louisiana Tech still has a bowl path. I wouldn't be surprised to see Louisiana Tech wind up in a bowl. So quality foe for sure. And the style of foe too, just thinking about the Louisiana Tech defense and the things we talk about, the number of quarterbacks Louisiana Tech is able to turn to even after. You look at the Bulldogs losing Blake Baker to the injury that ended his day. It was just a heck of a gut check for Delaware's defense. Coach Manny Rojas to have the different looks that Delaware showed in attacking the Louisiana Tech ground game that has Clay Tevenin leading the charge. And I actually thought Louisiana Tech might go to Tevenin more, but I thought that was to Delaware's benefit eventually, that Louisiana Tech maybe didn't give Tevenin more than 10 carries when all was said and done. But the reason I say it was just that much more fun, in addition to being a conference game, is seeing Delaware find a different way to win. I mean, UConn game, a shootout, one of those early season games. It's warmer out, the offense is flying, the football's going all over the place. And yes, I mean, Delaware's offense throwing the football all over the place. That should be the case throughout the season. I mean, it is part of Delaware's style when everything is clicking. But I just felt that for Delaware to pull a rabbit out of its hat with everything working together to the very bitter end, even when, again, I know we're not talking to these fans on this show, but man, it was just, you can ask anybody who was sitting next to me, my poor dad. I was really beside myself seeing Delaware fans queued up for the exits. Like, I can't remember ever being that much more frustrated and torn to bits by our own people. And I texted you guys the same thing. So that was a real thing I felt, and I just felt vindicated that the comeback was on from thereafter to make it a point of, no, like, this Delaware team does finish. That pillar that gets talked about. It's not just a slogan or something to put in the Instagram bio. I mean, it's a real thing in a conference game that helped Delaware define this path of the homestretch where, okay, now you can do more math about the bowl tracker and about Delaware sticking back above 500 for the overall record. All those things being at stake at once in a league game. That's why I felt this Tech game was that much more fun than the UConn game. But maybe it's unfair for me to say that because I'm centering it on the outcomes, or I'm saying because of what it had outcome-wise, it was that much more important, so therefore it was more fun. I don't know. I guess my logic can be picked apart, but I just felt that for Delaware to lean on, okay, this is the Louisiana Tech defense we're going against. There's possibly going to be more in the field goal kicking game today. Going to have to scratch and claw and get what you get when the Louisiana Tech defense is tightening up. Just for Delaware to string it together and have it be a Blue Hen response at late in the game when it felt like it was slipping away possibly. And I can remember a lot of those types of games that where Delaware has seen it slip away over the years in home games against this kind of quality foe. I was saying it, I think, during the last episode, right? Like, this just felt like, all right, prove it time. Like, this is another one of those types of games. We've seen Delaware fall in these types of games in the past, going across head coaching stops in the history of the team. So, yeah, this was really nice to have it be turning away the opponent this time, not letting it slip all the way out of grasp. Because when Louisiana Tech goes ahead it wasn't so much the pick six for me. It was more so, I'm going to go back to the play-by-play. I'm already spending too much time on this, but it was, let me make sure I'm looking at all plays here. It was more so Louisiana Tech going up by 1, where I was thinking, man, with this Louisiana Tech defense, you just don't know if you're going to be able to work it, even though it's still very much a close game. It couldn't be closer without being tied. You just don't know if Delaware is really going to get everything moving again. I mean, you'd seen Delaware in the second half of games, maybe against Middle Tennessee. You know, we saw the offense run into a little bit more of tapering off at times against Middle. So I was just thinking, man, the road team, all of a sudden, they've hung around long enough. They forced enough field goal makes by Delaware to take a late lead. Like, that was where I was more nervous even. The interception return, this is another thing. We think Delaware doesn't catch any breaks, But imagine, Bryce and Brody, if the defender who intercepts the pass for a Tech, imagine if he falls out of bounds just by sheer, like, oh, I just wasn't even able to stay on my feet long enough to stay in bounds. Like, imagine if the Bulldog defender falls out of bounds, and that's how Louisiana Tech gets back on offense. Like, for Delaware to catch the break of it happening in bounds, fortunately. And then also, if you slow it down, Bryce, did you notice this too? And I'll use this as my way to finally pass it back to you after all this time. The interception that the Bulldogs had late game return for the pick six, was that not right in front of the Bulldogs' own bench and coaching staff? Like, the coaches, if you break down or pause the video, are the coaches for Louisiana Tech not pointing toward the end zone? Like, hey, take it back, take it back. I'm thinking, you're the coaches. Like, you're the ones who need to be in that moment. If the Tech coaches are so lucky as to be right in front of the pick for the Bulldogs, I'm stunned that they didn't shout, get down, give yourself up. Like, it'd be one thing if the play were on the other sideline, but if Delaware were in those shoes, I think we'd be talking about, you had it right in your lap as an interception goes. Your own staff is right next to you, and I know it's the heat of the moment. It's way harder for the player, like easier said than done. I'm not trying to talk in the player's shoes, but more so the coaches. We don't know for sure what Louisiana Tech was saying, but I'm thinking, man, like, did we not see coaches gesturing toward the end zone, like, hey, just take it back, take it back? I'm thinking that was the best thing that could have happened to Delaware.
Yeah.
You got timeouts left, 2-minute warning, or 2-minute timeout. All these things add up to where, Delaware's touching the ball again because you decide to take it back to the end zone.
Yeah, well, you maybe opened up a door that I'm going to close it really quick because maybe I'll tie it back to the original question because I know we're over time here for this segment. But maybe the Louisiana Tech side, they know there was technically 3 timeouts with the 2 minutes. So Delaware had 2, and they had the 2-minute incoming. Maybe Louisiana Tech saw what happened in the UConn game where Connecticut tried to end the game with more points on offense, but gave Delaware the ball back with a chance to go down the field and tie it or in that moment win it. So I can't pick which one of these 2 games. As the person that asked the question, I'll hold it back and I'll ask the tiebreaker to our listeners. You tell us in the comments here, if you're listening on YouTube, you tell us which one was more exciting. You can think about it from any way you want to take it. You can think about it from just the 3 to 4 hour moment of the game, or you can think about it from more of what Dan took in the November late season implications. So I'll let you guys be the tiebreaker in the comments, and let's move ourselves into the Inside the Huddle segment. No surprise here. Dan talked about it. Our conversation with the homecoming hero, the Week 11 Conference USA Special Teams Player of the Week, Nate Reed, right now. Back here for a new edition of Inside the Huddle after an exciting win here for the Blue Hens on homecoming week. And I think it was a pretty easy decision. I was just telling him right before hitting record that we had to bring on a legacy game, Nate Reed, after a 4-for-4 performance. I guess I always talk about all 3 phases of the game, offense, defense, special teams, but really all 3 phases of the special teams in this one with field goals, onside kicks, and even a kickoff there that set up field position for the defense to end the game that I want to talk about later as we get into it. But nonetheless, Nate, thanks for joining us here for Inside the Huddle.
Thank you for having me.
This is probably an easy answer, but just to set the stage for us, how was Saturday for you? And a lot of emotions, but at the place kicker role, I know that there's a lot of waiting for your moments, and when you get on the field and you execute, just how was that for you? A big emotional win like that for the team.
Yeah, Saturday, mentally before going into the game, I knew La Tech had, the number 1 defense in the conference, obviously a very good defense. So going into that game mentally, I knew, might be kicking a couple more field goals, kind of similar to a Liberty game the week before. So I think that allowed me to, be comfortable before it happened. And, every time I get sent out there, it's the same thing I've been doing for a while here. So it felt, kind of like a routine game for me. It obviously got a little crazy at the end, but mentally preparing for the situation helped me a lot.
4-for-4, and of course the ender being a career-long 51-yard field goal. I know before the season started, when we met with you during fall camp, you said that you had a 55-yarder you hit, and you haven't really gone further than back, but actually your quote was, I think we have a pretty good shot if we need it at the end of the game. Your 51-yarder, you had plenty of room. It looked like it probably would have been good for 60 if you got there. Just, I guess when you prepare like that in practice for those moments, just how does it feel when you kind of spoke it into existence like months ahead of time, like in your role, just picturing every single scenario that you could see, like you said, maybe preparing for more field goals against Louisiana Tech. But I know the next kick is the best kick, but how does it feel ending a game like that?
Yeah, it's a moment that you dream of, whether you're alone on the field back home, kind of simulating that experience in your head, or in the game itself. It's something that you dream of every when you start kicking a ball. For me, it was a moment I dreamt of, similar to UConn, but this one actually being kind of for the win. Um, it's I'm still kind of speechless, but the moment I realized there was a chance was probably when we were about to score. So I usually go up and talk to my operation. I talk to Maddox Sales, Brandon Locke, and I say, hey, field goal's dead here. Obviously, be ready in case of overtime, but so I remember talking to them, say, obviously, field goal's dead. We're down 8. As soon as we scored, I realized we could get this ball back. Like, this isn't over. Like, we can kick this ball. And from that point on, it was kind of like game time. Like, once I saw we didn't get it, they called onside kick. My helmet went on and said, "We're gonna get this ball back, and we're gonna set something up here." So it's just an unbelievable moment, just a dream come true.
How is preparing for onside kicks? Because I know, of course, that there's 10 other guys on the field with you on a field goal operation, like on like a straight onside, on a straight kickoff. But it feels like maybe an onside scenario, it really feels like there's a different style of preparation. Like, of course, you never know where the opposing side's going to line up. You it's hard to really tell with the other guys on your operation. So it feels like maybe a different form of preparation. So is that, I mean, 2 on the year so far at Jack State and here. Are these the first 2 that you've completed in your career?
Yeah, this I had one onside kick in high school. Almost got it out of bounds, but these are my first 2 onside kicks in college. It's it's one of the most I talked about it before. There's such a little knick-knack kind of thing with onside kicks where if you hit it just the right way, I feel like you can get that big bounce, and I'm fortunate enough that I have hit the last 2 pretty well. And before the timeout, we did give away kind of our scheme, what we were doing. I was worried that they were going to jump on it, but my only goal with the onside kick is to try to kind of just hit the gap between the guys. If you get it past the front line and let the ball bounce twice, that's usually when you see the high hop. So um, I'm super proud of Jakari Kelly and the guys for carrying out the scheme, going and getting the ball. As soon as I saw the second bounce, I knew we had a chance, and I'm just happy we got it.
Yeah, well, it's a different version of icing the kicker, as they say, when they call a timeout of seeing the scheme. And yeah, like you said, that second bounce looks like you're skipping rocks, like on a flat river. Like that first one just picks up the second one. Um, Amazing moment. But on the I want to talk about this from a kicking standpoint about handling a slump. Like a former baseball player myself, sometimes you're seeing the ball really well, but it's just not going your way. And maybe the beginning of the season didn't go your way, but now a current streak of 8, tied for 5th longest in school history. Just talk about how it is in your shoes when you maybe not everything's going the way you feel. Preparation feels like you're doing the right thing, but just the execution isn't going the way you want.
Yeah, obviously the start of the year was just not wasn't something that I was frustrated for sure. I started 0 for 3, and it felt like just kind of exactly what you described. It was right. I was seeing the ball. It was right there. They were just barely missing, and it was super frustrating. I remember coming up to Coach Carty and being one of the things I said before the UConn kick was, "It's right there. Like, I feel it," and that's when I got the second opportunity to send that one to overtime, but. I would say dealing with that, the slump, like you said, you just kind of have to trust yourself. Knowing you've trained for the moment so many times. I kept reminding myself, it's coming. It's going to start to fall. Just like basketball, like free throws or anything like that, it's going to start to fall. Just hoping that it's going to, go the way I want it to. And sure enough, it's turned around, and I'm super happy for it. But I will say, like, there was a time in the start of the year where it was really frustrating, and I did have to kind of go back to one of my coaches, my mental performance coaches, and kind of sit down with him and say, like, hey, what are we gonna do here? Like, we got to figure something out. How do we keep myself, level headed? Just kind of go out there and do my job. So, but it was uh, it was tough, but I'm really happy that it turned around. So
the But now being honored, I don't think it was very unexpected Week 11 Special Teams Player of the Week, tying the most in a single game in school history on 4 field goals. Just I guess to sum it up before moving forward, how does receiving those honors after a big win for the team feel?
It's amazing. It was one of my goals. When I saw the conference realignment, obviously I wanted to see if I could, do something along the special teams player of the week, get something along those lines, and it's always a goal, a little personal goal. But I think I'm more proud of the win that we got and the way we fought. The awards and accolades come with it, but just giving that moment to the fans, I think, is, as the more I think about it, it's not necessarily like the kick, that how it fell, but watching the videos back, it's the moment that I was able to share with those fans. My family went to a pizza shop after. A bunch of alumni came up to me and they said, this is the one game we come back to every year. Like, thank you. Like, we'll never forget that game. And I think that kind of hit home with me, that I was able to share that and be a part of that for them. So.
A different side of your game that I know you take a lot of pride in, we talked about in fall camp, is kickoffs, and you take a lot of pride of just putting the ball back through the end zone, not letting some of these Conference USA, these FBS playmakers, especially at this level, to make a play on special teams to set up the offense in great field position. You broke the record for touchbacks in the school. Just how was that element too? It's been an exciting couple of weeks for you personally.
Yeah. Kickoff has always been one of my favorite parts of the game. It's like controlled anger, we like to call it. Just kind of blasting the ball off the tee, seeing how far you can hit it every time. I've always had kind of a fast leg, and I've been able to use that and kind of put that into kickoffs, and it's helped me a lot. And that goes along with the onside kicks too. Every time I see a new one, I kind of want to go out and try it. So add another tool to the toolbox. But getting the touchback record is the other week was amazing. That was another goal I had. And, I think another thing that goes, under the radar is when I do hit the touchbacks, a lot of the motivation comes from, keeping our guys healthy, because kickoff is one of the most violent plays in the game for sure. And I want to try and keep our guys healthy just so they don't have to, constantly banging into each other against the other team. So that's the motivation for touchbacks, and obviously setting up Coach Rojas on the 25 each time is huge. He likes to tell me. He thanks me for that a lot. So
I like that. And Coach Manny back on the sideline. So I'm sure you heard that a lot more in your ear this past weekend. But we're getting down to Texas after a big emotional win 5-4. But before we get there, I want to ask you, because before the season I asked about how excited you were to kick in elevation in Colorado. How was that experience for you? Being out in Boulder, in warm-ups, did the air feel as different as you expected?
The air didn't start feeling thin until I started running around for the warm-ups. And then I was like, wow, I'm struggling to breathe a little bit. But I didn't expect the ball to fly that much differently. I kind of thought the elevation was a little overhyped, but once we started kicking there, it was really evident. The ball wouldn't come down. It kind of just kept carrying through the wind, I guess. So I was kind of playing around with it pregame. I was able to hit from like 69, 70 yards of the field goal. And then kickoffs, that ball just kept going. So that was a great experience. That was everything I hoped it was. So,
well, heading down to, I was about to say Huntsville, Texas, but I know the game's actually in Houston with the Sam Houston's renovations. Just, have you been in Texas before? Have you kicked in the state before?
I went to a showcase for kicking in Dallas, Texas, my senior year of high school when I was looking to get recruited. That's the only time. I remember talking to my mom about it. I'm like, I don't think I'll ever kick a football in Texas again. But here we are. So super excited to go back down there. Actually, I have kicked the ball in Texas, but looking forward to doing it in a game now. So.
Well, awesome. The Blue Hens moved to 5-4, hoping to get to that 6-win benchmark, even through the FBS transition that the team's going through. But super excited to have you, Nate. The Week 11 as Conference USA Special Teams Player of the Week, and just congrats to you and all of your personal and team accolades so far. And what's been a super exciting year for yourself and the program. Thanks for joining us here today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
All right, welcome back to the Pecking Order. This is my weekly conference power rankings segment here. If you've seen it before, you know how it goes. I'm just going to throw it up on the screen. We have some changes here at the bottom of the pecking order. Middle Tennessee moves down to number 12. Sam Houston moves up a spot. I always say that if you want to move up, you have to win, and that's exactly what Sam Houston did. They won. They beat who is technically a Power 5 team in the Oregon State Beavers. A game that they were outgained by hundreds of yards, I believe. But they got it done. New Mexico State actually moves down to 10. UTEP moves up a little bit. UTEP moves up over New Mexico State kind of just after playing well against a number of top teams in the conference. You look at their conference schedule up to this point. They've had Jacksonville State, Kennesaw, Liberty, and La Tech. I think Delaware would have a similar record to UTEP, all things considered, if they were in their spot. So UTEP at the bottom end of the bottom, or at the top end of the bottom four teams here. Have FIU. In my notes here, I say that they're on a skid. I don't know if that's true, if they were ever that good this year. But they're clearly on a different tier than the bottom four teams, so I have to have them here at 8. Number 7, this one's tough, and I have to explain myself a little bit. I have Liberty here at number 7. We're kind of at the point in the year that we have to come to terms with that. These teams, especially at this level, are not consistent from week to week. To power rank a team, you have to look back at their entire season, and that is just impossible to do. I don't know how to do that, considering that there's been 1 week where Liberty's looked really good, and it was last week against us. And then they went back to how they've been looking the entire season with just an offense that's completely uninspired, a defense that plays pretty well but still gives up enough points to lose. I don't know how Liberty's going to look the next couple of weeks. Obviously, they blew out Delaware, so they have to be above FIU, who were blown out by Delaware. But I just can't put them any higher than this. Right above them is Missouri State. They're 6-3, petitioning for bowl eligibility. There's lots of momentum for this team. They just beat Liberty, so I have to have them above them at least in the next week after it happened. Again, these teams aren't consistent. They went down to the wire with Middle Tennessee, if I remember. Liberty, I think, is probably the best team in the conference that they've played and beaten. So we'll see what their last 3 weeks look like for Missouri State. We might learn a little bit more about them. Louisiana Tech here at number 5. I still think this is a good team with a really great defense, but just the injuries and coaching are starting to catch up with Louisiana Tech. Delaware is a team that they should have beat. I think we all kind of thought that going into this game, but it just comes down to coaching. Akumbi is on the hot seat with Louisiana Tech fans. I don't know if he's on the hot seat with the AD, but I mean, if you ask anyone in the fan base, they're ready to move off of Akumbi. And that's understandable, considering that they could have won the game if that DB just slides down. The whole coaching staff was telling him to go take the touchdown, and you can't take a pick six away from a guy like that. But there's just things that you can do to win, and Louisiana Tech just hasn't been doing those. You think about this game, think about Western Kentucky as well. Just like small things that add up over the course of a game. Missed special teams plays, bad special teams at the end. To give Delaware back the ball on that onside kick. Great onside kick, but one that they took a timeout right before, then put the same, I think it was a linebacker at Hands team. You want to get someone with better hands and maybe a little bit taller out there to really get that second bounce. Anyways, I'm spending too much time on Louisiana Tech. We're moving on to number 4, the Delaware Blue Hens. They got their teeth kicked in a couple times this year, but they're starting to had themselves starting to actually get that momentum that they were looking for, the momentum that they had moving into October. October was a really bad month for the Hens, but now in November, it's looking a little bit better. Kind of stringing together a couple wins. Of course, you have the bad Liberty loss, but you counter that with a Louisiana Tech win. If you asked me 3 or 4 weeks ago, I'd had those games switched. It's where we lose to Louisiana Tech and we beat Liberty. But I'm glad that it worked out the way that it did because we're moving into Sam Houston with a lot of momentum. The schedule gets easier from here on out, so it's time to start stacking wins. Just 1 win away from bowl eligibility. 7 wins are on the schedule. This team just has to go and get them. Western Kentucky here at number 3. I've had them ranked below Delaware in the past. I have them ranked above Delaware here. I really wish that we beat them when we had our chance because this team is beating teams that they should beat and squeaking past teams that they could easily lose to. But they just haven't lost to those teams yet. And obviously they're a great team, but they're just not top 2. Top 2 is still Kennesaw and Jacksonville State, both undefeated in conference play. They play this week, and I'm very excited for this game. It's going to be a Conference USA championship preview, if you ask me, and pretty much ask anybody else. I think anyone who's invested in Conference USA is very hyped to watch this game. Those are my top 2. Now moving into the rival rundown, we had a lot of teams on the rival rundown play this week as opposed to last week. Wake Forest appears here on the rival rundown. Their graphic design department put out a graphic announcing what time the game is, and they used just our logo on a blue helmet shell. Not what our helmets look like. I did ratio their post. I really hope that means they go and change it. If I know anything about PR like offices like that, there's been an email that's already been sent. So hoping they show us a little bit of respect moving into the Week 13 game. But that's why they're on the rival rundown. They beat a ranked Virginia team at home. Kind of scary. Hoping we catch them in a trap game. Hoping they don't respect us coming in and we can kind of scare them. Kind of like how we did with Louisiana Tech. Low-scoring games. Their games have been very low-scoring all year. I remember back when Kennesaw played them and they only won by 1 point in a real rock fight. Navy gets crushed by Notre Dame. Happens every year. Temple loses a heartbreaker to Army in a drive where Army took up almost 10 minutes on that last drive. If you guys remember the 10-minute Army drive from last year. It's just great engineering. That's exactly how I play in CFP 26, is I keep the ball on the ground and I dominate clock, and that's exactly what Army does so well, and Temple was just on the receiving end of it. 13-14 loss to Army. It actually might take them out of bowl contention because they have 2 really challenging games coming down the pipe. And they might not hit bowl eligibility, which would honestly be hysterical. UMass gets crushed by Akron, which is just upsetting. I don't know why I feel this way, but I just feel bad for UMass. I want them to be better than they are. They went out and they poached Rhode Island's AD, who's been gearing up Rhode Island for a couple of years to be a much better team than they were. So he gets poached by UMass. I really hope that means something for them. I hope something happens, period, for UMass, because it just people are calling for them to move back down to FCS, and as much as I'm against that move, from a UMass perspective, it just feels like an Idaho situation where it just might make sense. Unfortunately. UConn beats Duke at home. They're making our win against UConn look better and better. Duke could possibly win the ACC, and that would create this whole crazy situation where, do you put the Sun Belt and the American champion in the playoff? If that means putting James Madison in the playoff, absolutely not. But it's crazy. I have no idea how that's going to go, but UConn beats Duke. James Madison, again, remains a one-loss team and undefeated in their conference. Have they played anybody? I don't know. Their only win against a team with a winning record is Old Dominion, who is just crumbling and crumbling. They looked great early, and they're just like shooting themselves over and over again. But nevertheless, James Madison stays undefeated in the SBC. And then very last on the list, I have Delaware 8. I haven't talked about DSU nearly as much as I've wanted to. I've gone to a couple of Dell State games this year. I went to the one at the Link. They beat Morgan State to stay 7-3. They should be 8-2. If you ask me, that Sacred Heart game was horrible officiating. But I'm not going to talk about that because that was months ago now. But they're in contention for the MEAC. If they don't win the MEAC, if South Carolina State ends up beating them in the MEAC, they might have an opportunity at an FCS playoff bid, which is what the loser of the MEAC is kind of in contention for. Of course, the winner of the MEAC goes to the Celebration Bowl, not the FCS playoffs. So it's very interesting. And that's my rival rundown. And back to you, Bryce.
Thanks, Brody. Shifting back here to focus on the Bearkats, where Dan will sit down with Ben Sorrells of March to the Pod to talk about the Sam Houston matchup and an exciting moment between the two programs in coaching history. And now we can get into, which I'm excited to learn more about these quarterbacks now that today of recording on Tuesday announced that Hunter Watson will again be out for week 12 against the Blue Hens. So I'll pass the mic to Dan to get in that conversation now.
The Feathers and Field Goals podcast continues, and now getting a look at the Sam Houston scout, we now get to sit down with Ben Sorrells of March to the Pod, covering Sam Houston in the CUSA podcast roundtable. And Ben, thanks for taking some time. You and I were just talking a bit before getting on the podcast air about some of your recollections of knowing Delaware staff or current Delaware staff a little bit, those who were at Sam Houston with Coach Carty. So already the connections we can feel a little bit heading into this one. But talking about the Bearkats, in the big picture, what has it been about this season so far? The results haven't been there yet. Record-wise, unfortunately, for Coach Phil Longo, but his first season as head coach, it isn't his first stint at Sam Houston, though. What are your overall kind of impressions of the priorities of this coaching staff, the big tenets of the program in the Longo era?
Yeah, Longo comes back to Sam Houston after being the offensive coordinator from 2014 to 2016. So it's his second stint with the program, this time as the head coach. And people knew this was going to be a transition year. You lost your entire staff from last year with Casey Keeler leaving, your entire defense from a personnel perspective, starting from scratch. You did bring back about half the offense, so people were a little bullish on that side of the ball, especially with Hunter Watson being back. But I think even with the tempered expectations, it's been somewhat of a disappointing year, especially on the offensive side of the ball. I know Sam Houston is last in scoring offense right now, and Phil Longo, a guy that was brought in to score a lot of points, that's been a little disappointing on that side of the ball. And just the overall kind of vibe around the program has just been a little down. People were expecting, maybe a 3, 4, 5 win season. It looks like it might be a 1, maybe 2 win season, kind of lucked into a win this last weekend in Corvallis. So a little bit of a down year, but people aren't really judging Longo on this year. I think next year is when people will really start to get a good feel of where this program is at under Phil Longo. He'll have a full off season, his own guys in there. And another reason you can't really judge him on this year is he had a 19-day gap between when Keeler left and when he got hired, and you lose 19 days in the transfer portal. It's a really hard thing to fill all those roles and all those staff members. So disappointing year, but a big offseason coming up. We'll see what next year looks like, and we'll see how they can finish out these last 3 games this year.
Well, and the way you talk about it, Ben, it's tough for a team in November, approaching mid-November, and by virtue of the record as it is, you're not going to have that postseason path, and it's just been a long year and things stack up and a lot of negative attention, just FBS G5 life, it feels like it's never easy to be having a lean record or going winless for a long stretch, but just the memes and the exposure of being in the FBS and having the struggles that people forget the heights Sam Houston has just achieved not long ago. Not people in the Houston area, but just at large. It's easy to or not easy to go through what gets said about the program. But most recently, a win at Oregon State that you just mentioned, going on the road, 21-17, the Bearkats winning that one. What's the vibe in terms of what that's done for the team? Just to get that check mark done, it's not an easy place to play out at a Pac-12 after dark type situation.
Yeah, Longo said it was kind of put up or shut up time heading into Oregon State, and that's what he told the guys at halftime too. And I mentioned the offense being disappointing up to this point in the season, but the defense has made strides under Phil Longo, which is something that not a lot of people saw coming. So that's an encouraging sign. They finished at Oregon State with 9 consecutive stops in that game, and so the defense has shown growth. It's not been linear. It's kind of been up and down, but there's been some defensive growth. Special teams was incredible. So there is a little bit more energy around the program heading into this Delaware game, getting back home for the first time in a few weeks also. So we'll see what they do responding to success. First time you've had success this year, and we'll see how they can build on that momentum.
Yeah, maybe a little bit of belief in a spark in the team. It has to be tough playing home games, down the road in Houston, Shell Energy Stadium, an MLS venue, of course, Bowers Stadium up in Huntsville, having renovations done, and I'm looking forward to see what that looks like later on in Delaware's time in CUSA. But for the time being, how have the home games been? For Sam Houston, what is Delaware walking into getting to play in H-Town?
Yeah, like you said, down at Shell Energy Stadium, which is about 70 miles south of Huntsville, and when you add in rush hour traffic, it could almost be 2.5 hours. So the home atmosphere has been a little disappointing so far this year. I know, like you said, some people have probably seen the memes and the jokes about the empty seats, but when you're playing on a Wednesday or a Tuesday in the middle of downtown Houston, especially with some of it being during the Astros stretch run of the regular season, attendance hasn't been great. There were some expectations that it would be good because we've played for the last 15 years at NRG Stadium and averaged 20 to 30,000 people, but that's typically a rivalry game on a Saturday afternoon. So a little bit of a different vibe. I know people are excited to get back to Bowers next year, $60 million renovation, completely redoing the west side of the stadium. So I think things should get back to normal next year from an attendance perspective. I think they averaged about 10 or 11,000 last year. So hopefully you can get back closer to that number next year. But this year, you kind of just have to deal with it. Longo said it's almost like playing 12 road games, and they just got to make the most of it.
Yeah, making the most of it, of a tough situation. But hopefully that Bowers new look is really going to be gratifying on the other side. Great to see.
Yeah.
From a conference perspective, that's definitely an investment that in Texas, especially so competitive in the FBS landscape in Texas, that investment. I'm sure Conference USA folks, and great to see. But getting back on the field for Sam Houston on offense, where it'll start with our kind of Longo discussion. Quarterback, it seems like it's been a tough story this year with Hunter Watson's health. You have Mabry Matoyer and Landon Locke seeing time most recently as well. How has that position and its ebbs and flows kind of directed the offense this season?
Yeah, it's kind of been all over the place. Hunter Watson won the battle coming out of camp and started off slow, brand new system for him, but you could see him really start to come on. And then if people know who Hunter Watson is, they know how he plays. Very physical style of play, and it has caught up to him these last few weeks. He missed the Hawaii game early on. He missed this last week. Also missed another game for about half the game in the middle of the season. And so Mabry Matoyer got the start against Oregon State last week. Landon Locke came in relief because the offense just wasn't really moving the ball. And I talked to Coach Longo this week. Excuse me. He said Hunter Watson is out for Saturday, and it's going to be between Matoyer and Locke. So we'll see who gets out there to start, but it sounds like it's going to be a game time decision on who starts, and it could be either one of them.
Any X factor on the offensive side of the ball, any position who's kind of like a go-to player, even a really helpful blocker or part of the O-line that the quarterback, whoever's in there, can really lean on for the Bearkats in your eyes?
Yeah, Phil Longo's known for his air raid, but he's an air raid with a twist. He loves to run the football, and that's kind of been where Sam Houston has found success. on the offensive side of the ball. Elijah Green looks like he's probably going to be out. Got nicked up the other day, so looking at a lot of Coco Brown, Alton McGaskill. Those two guys are going to be a big factor in the run game. And then on the offensive line, the two guys to know, James Don, Colt Dieterich, both multi-year starters here, started on the bowl team last year. So it's two really big pieces of the offensive line that have really helped this team. Don missed the first month of the season. Getting him back has really helped a lot the last probably 6 weeks. So, yeah, the running back room is one to watch. Probably going to see a lot of Alton McGaskill, Coco Brown, maybe even a little bit of Jarian Parker. We saw him on the final drive last week come in for a little bit. So definitely watch out for the run game. It's an air raid offense, but they do love to run the ball a lot.
Flipping things over to the defensive side for Sam Houston, a side that it sounds like it's really had to be a side that's relied upon with different steps forward and back on offense for the Bearkats under Coach Longo just starting out. What's been the keys to success on defense?
Forcing turnovers. I mean, they are second in Conference USA in turnover margin. Love to force turnovers, have a knack for just punching the ball out. Had 2 turnovers against Oregon State, or had 4 actually, 2 in the first half, 2 in the second half. Javon Wilson had a pick and a forced fumble. Tyler Bailey had 1, and then he had the block kick also. So knack for forcing those turnovers. And then Dylan Frazier, excuse me, he's the guy to know on the defensive line, had 13 tackles against Oregon State. He was out against Louisiana Tech, and you could tell. That's why they gave up 400 rushing yards. And so having him back is going to be a big key for this defense.
Breaking it down, I love that insight in terms of the how of how you see it on the box score and you see the eye-popping number, but the how of how it went down, and it's not always an excuse. It's just the context and the realities of what you're working with on a roster in November or in late October, as the case may be. That La Tech game for the Bearkats, that was that Halloween matchup, right, with the color rush, maybe that orange and black combination, if I recall.
It was, and we were down our top 3 defensive tackles. It wasn't just Frazier. It was Cordell Pat and Darian Jackson, and they were all 3 back for Oregon State. But obviously, Dylan Frazier is the biggest name to know on that D-line, and he played a huge role in that win, 13 tackles, and his impact in the game went well beyond that. And Antavius Fish, he's a guy at the linebacker position to know. He calls the plays on the defense. He's got the dot. And then Iman Allen, a guy, probably the only guy that really played a lot last year that came back. He was your third corner. He's taken a big step forward this year. Number 7, he's your top corner out there. So Frazier, Fish, and then Allen are kind of the 3 guys at the 3 different levels to take a look at.
This isn't maybe any other week's scout team here at Feathers and Field Goals. A fun chance to have some camaraderie bonding over the overlap of Casey Keeler. For one thing, we talked about not getting that Keeler Bowl of Sam Houston versus Delaware, either in the FCS playoffs a number of years ago in the COVID season or in the regular season. Now it didn't work out with Coach Keeler up the road from Delaware now at Temple of all places. But we do get Coach Carty's return. Ryan Carty going back to Sam Houston. Not going to be in Huntsville this time, of course, but what are your recollections of Delaware staff members who were at Sam Houston? We were talking, you didn't necessarily have a ton of time to get to know them on a deeper level, but some recollections of names that Delaware fans have now gotten to know. There's Coach Archer on Delaware's staff, Terrence Archer, thinking of Chris Rogers, Garrett Smith. You go down the line, different folks who went with Ryan Carty from Huntsville to Newark.
Yeah, so starting with the head man, Ryan Carty himself, he's the guy that got Coach Keeler back into coaching, which is something that was really big for the Sam Houston program. And then he came back and was the offensive coordinator at Sam Houston. Remember him a lot. Those offenses were so much fun. He was the OC that led us to the national title game with Eric Schmidt at the helm, and his development there with Eric Schmidt was just a big part of the success we had during that run. And I think a lot of people will also remember Ryan Carty with the swinging gate formation. I don't know if you still see a lot of that up in Delaware, but a lot of people remember him that way. Some people liked it, some people didn't, but that's another staple of Ryan Carty and what I remember with him. Did a lot for the offense. People always talk about the swinging gate. And then Chris Rogers, offensive line, they kind of retooled both offense and defensive line in 2019, 2020, kind of when he was here. And he was a big part of just the level of physicality that it took to win games. I mean, we were getting blown out against James Madison and North Dakota State. in those quarterfinal, semifinal games. And you bring in a new coaching staff, new weight staff, training staff, and the level of physicality along the offensive line just went to another level. And he was a part of that with those teams. And then Terrence Archer also, some incredible wide receivers that we had here when he was here. One that people might remember, Jaquez Ezzard. He was a big part of that national title team. That was a really fun group. Noah Smith, Ife Adeyi, two guys that were still a part of the team for Sam Houston last year. So he coached that group, and I know he's got a really close relationship with Chris Mudge, our head basketball coach. I know they're still close. So three guys that were a big part of the success at Sam Houston, and Ryan Carty, a big part of the success at Sam Houston overall, getting Coach Keeler back into coaching, telling him he needs to take the Sam Houston job back in the 2010s. So three guys that I vividly remember from their time at Sam Houston.
It's only fitting now that there is a little bit of that return to Texas. I say a little bit of a return and not a homecoming, just because it's not quite on campus. And we'll have to, patience is a virtue for that, right? This is a conference series that's now starting up. So a heck of a series between two former Titans of the FCS, in different eras. Delaware having its moments, Sam Houston going to Frisco on more occasions even than Delaware put together. The last time Delaware played in the state of Texas, Frisco, Texas, the FCS national title, the 2010 season. Don't want to spend too much time on that for the Feathers and Field Goals listening audience. But Ben, just wrapping us up in the next few moments here, a chance to plug March to the Pod and where folks can find you on Twitter and all the like.
Yeah, so I run Sports of SHSU, all one word, on X and Instagram. So you can find me there. And then podcast with my co-host Corey at March #2, the pod. Some people, obviously, if you're not around Sam Houston, might not know the name, but pod is a reference to Tripod, which was a three-legged dog on the Sam Houston campus that lived there for about 15 years and was kind of like an unofficial mascot in the 60s and 70s. And then March 2 is in reference to March to the Grave, which is a celebration where people march from the campus to Sam Houston's grave. I believe it's on his birthday. So that's kind of how you get the name. We have three legs of the podcast, like tripods. So March #2, the pod, that's where you can find the podcast on all different socials.
Love the name in terms of the history backing it up. We think we're cute with our alliteration and our basketball football hybrid name here, but no, I love the history intertwined there. And this has been Ben Sorrells of March to the Pod here on Feathers and Field Goals. We now continue with the Sam Houston Week episode rolling on right after this.
Thanks, Dan, for running that segment with Ben. Super excited to collaborate with March to the Pod heading into the back end of the season, back quarter. It feels super weird to think about. Let's just jump right into 3 now. We're running a 2-minute drill offense here because we spent a lot of time in the Louisiana Tech game. You can't blame us there. And the conversation with Nate was great, and Ben was also great. My thing that I'm focusing on is, can the Delaware offense establish a run game? I'm thinking back to the Florida International game where they kind of could drive any way they wanted to. They could pass it or break an X play out for a quick score within like 3 to 4 plays, or they could, in the second half, they kind of drained the clock, and that came from a balanced offense. We haven't seen the Delaware offense really break out the run game as much as it would have liked to, really since that, maybe the Western game a little bit. Have to dive back into it, but I'm looking at the Sam Houston offense, the worst rush defense in the league by a big margin, averaging over 200 yards against on the ground. I'm looking back in the last 4. Jack State, we know how good Cam Cook and that rushing offense is. They had 370 on the ground a few weeks ago. Then they faced UTEP. UTEP finished the day with 175 on the ground. Louisiana Tech, who, of course, we know that we just saw, had 426 yards and 6 touchdowns on the ground. And then Oregon State, big win for them, but they still had 188 yards on the ground. I would even take the smallest number of those 4 if it means successful multi-dimensional offense. I know if the pass game's working, I'm fine if they want to stick with it, but I would like to see the run game start. And we don't know the currently status of Joe Silver's health. Did leave the game against Louisiana Tech. So is this going to be a Byron Ellison Jr. day? Is Greg Spiller going to get some touches out of the backfield? Like stuff I'm looking out for that all ties into the success that Delaware is going to have to find on the ground this Saturday. Brody, I think you might have something that connects with mine, so I'll let you take yours.
Hey God, where's Quincy Watson when you need him? Can we get that guy back? At RB3.
Good shot.
So mine is a little bit different. Everyone knows that our pass game has been kind of out of rhythm the last couple of weeks. It's been tough when you're getting pressured against a team like Liberty and also a team like Louisiana Tech. It's been really hard to throw the ball recently, and that's primarily what we do. It used to be very balanced, and now we're kind of veering off into a more pass-heavy offense. And I like to see this opportunity to kind of get the passing game kind of back in mojo, kind of get the vibe back for the passing game. Hopefully, an opportunity to do that when you control the game offensively how you think you might be able to, against a team like Sam Houston. And I really hope that they can kind of get their vibe back in the passing game with Nick Minacucci and his outside receivers. Not very good from deep. I believe it was what was it, Bryce? 3 for
13 and 15 plus air yard attempts against Louisiana Tech. Yep.
Which is that's not what you want. It's gonna be a little bit warmer down in Houston. Hopefully, get that ball to your receivers a little bit easier. But we'll try to capitalize on that. I think that if we can iron out some of the creases this week, it's going to aid us a lot in the next 2 weeks, and hopefully finish out the season strong in terms of the pass game.
Get the run going. Definitely can open up the pass a little bit more. Dan, what are you looking at?
Well, both of you guys are talking about Delaware's offense. Let's talk about Ryan Carty and other Delaware offensive staff members. Of course, we know Coach Carty, the head coach and the play caller on offense, going back to face Sam Houston. I mean, this game not in Huntsville on this occasion. It's going to be in the city of Houston, but I'm still interested in that return game facing the prior place of work. You've got Carty, you've got Terrence Archer, who was also with Ryan Carty on KC Keeler's Sam Houston staff. You get down the list and see Chris Rogers, offensive line coach at Delaware, was also O-line coach at Sam Houston. And you can even go all the way down the list. Garrett Smith, coaching tight ends now at Delaware. He was a QC on offense at Sam Houston. So I'm interested in seeing how Delaware looks. I mean, it's not that it affects it too much on the field, but just the vibes of Delaware's, a big chunk of Delaware's staff getting to face the Bearkats. Just a bit of a neat opportunity, and continues a trend this year. Saw Noah Black get to coach against UConn. Saw Manny Rojas go back to Lynchburg. So yeah, this one kind of adds to the list here. But Delaware certainly needing to travel better down to Texas, travel better than it did against Liberty.
Semi-homecoming with them going to Houston, Texas, and not Huntsville, Texas. But throw right back, Dan. What's your final score prediction in this one? We'll keep these short so we can wrap this up here.
Sam Houston could be sneaky, guys. They got belief now. They've got that win. That was a long trip out to Oregon State, and to show the guts and resolve to come out with a gritty win. That makes the Bearkats not one to disrespect, but Delaware has life after its own win. I've got Delaware 33-16.
I'm never disrespecting any team, because even if Sam Houston didn't win that game, I'm thinking, dang, they really want to get that first one at home against guys with that coach in that program, as you just said. So I'm still looking. It's a road game. It's a road conference game. It's not going to be easy. I do think this is an opportunity for Delaware to get that game against FIU I mentioned, above 30 points offense, below 20 defense. Give me the same score as week one, 35-17 Delaware.
Well, this one was maybe the easiest choice I've had to make all year. Of course, we didn't make a choice for Del State. I was behind the boards for our live show. But I don't like that they have wind beneath their wings now after the Oregon State win. But I also wouldn't have liked it if they didn't win that game, because like you said, they would be looking for that number one win on the year. I have to take the Hens, obviously. And I will say that I don't like the life that this Sam Houston team has now. So I'm going to say 34-20 for Delaware. I think we get up early. but maybe we let some slip in the second half, kind of a backdoor cover situation. I think maybe they keep it closer than we like, and then they score one late to make it 34-24.
There you have it. I think we keep going. Every time we have a sweep across the board of feathers and field goals, we took a big risk in this past one with Louisiana Tech being, I think, 6.5 point favorites on the road. But here we are, Blue Hens on the road, us three taking this. For those that made it all the way through, thanks for being here for another episode of Feathers and Field Goals. Hopefully we can get back when Delaware gets to the 6-win mark. Regardless, we'll be here to break down week 12 and before we get into week 13 against Wake. Thanks for joining us for another show of Feathers and Field Goals, and we'll see you next time.